I was spending time in Indiana for medical reasons. My partner has been experiencing personal issues. Days of sitting around in a house, open fields everywhere, playing serious Sam Nix Encounter on an emulator, as well as Shadow Man and the Sims games for the Game Boy Advance. We'd go to the local Kroger's to pick up soup, sparkling water, seaweed, and packaged birthday cakes. It was nearing the time to go home, and I got a call from my father. He said my Uncle Scotty just suffered a stroke and he's in the hospital. He didn't go into detail. I said something trying to lighten the situation, like, I hope he's better soon, and my dad did something to indicate it was serious. I forget. I barely remember coming home. I remember being at the hospital though. A brick hospital with really nicely themed it was really nicely themed with fake plants and water, like indoor sanctuaries for patients who couldn't get out. We walked in through the top door at the parking garage, and the door led off to a higher overlooking location to the food court. There were banners coming off of the different floors. I think there were at least 2 more floors below us, before the food court. We were walking down the hallway, and I've been in this hospital before, so it didn't really hit me. Nothing was off, but I saw my uncle and aunt. They said Scotty couldn't talk anymore or move, but he could look up and down, and they said it was really bad. They also said that he was asked if he wanted to continue living, and he was very much against it. We kept walking down until we reached the waiting room, a big open area, and we were eventually led to the room. It still didn't hit me. I saw Scotty, I nodded at him, and I saw him nod back, and I didn't say anything. I barely talked to him when he was alive, but I always admired him. I was in the claustrophobic hospital room with some noise on TV. It was nothing but a distraction. But it didn't really distract the aura of this room. It was really dark, and everyone was just sad. My grandpa didn't want to be weak in front of Scotty. He wanted to be his support. My other uncle was there as well, and my parents, my mom and dad, everyone was quiet. It didn't hit me yet. I walked back out into the waiting room and just sat there until I was just overcame with the emotion. It hit me so hard, and I've never cried that painfully for a long time. Something about strength and, being cold towards adversity. All I could really do was cry, crying from my partner, my mom, my dad, my brother. And I wasn't the only one crying. My brother was really devastated too. It was a really painful moment to lose a family member, a really great family member. I kept looking through my tears at the person across from us. I kept wondering who this guy was, and if he was inconvenienced by the 2 crying people in the waiting room. I knew this hospital, I knew it was a hospital, but I didn't know if he knew what was happening down the hallway, behind some doors, what was happening in that dark hospital room, drowned out by some television noise. I eventually gathered myself and just walked away. I went downstairs into a general shop, The shop had waters, I got some mango LaCroix, and some chocolate probably, and I waited in line dry-eyed. I walked downstairs into the cafeteria area, and I relaxed for a bit, talking about music or some other topic, and someone came up to me and asked for a LaCroix and offered me $1. I gave it to him. I probably wouldn't even charge him if he just stuck around. I wanted to feel less alone. Something about that devastation really takes out of you. I decided on going to the food court, and I bought some sushi, I think. I don't quite remember the food, it's a blur. But I remember finishing up, throwing everything away, and just sitting in the little meditation area with the trees, overlooking a small fountain, looking up at the floors above me, hearing kids run around, seeing people pass by. I was really in my own headspace, of just trying to come to acceptance. I threw coins in the water just to give myself some sort of power, some sort of grounding. Like if I wish this away, by some miracle this would change. I wanted him to talk and prove the doctors wrong. I wanted him to move, and I wanted the past to be different. For some context, the same blood clots that ended up killing him were in his ankles, giving him pain. He was complaining during Christmas that his ankles hurt, and they played this off as some kind of joke. It's one of those hindsight moments. But I wanted him, I wanted to wake up with him being treated like this was all a bad dream. After the hospital, I went to my old therapist, someone I saw pretty frequently, just during the dark of the night, in this dark room talking about my uncle dying down the street. Not much else I can elaborate on that. It was a pretty difficult discussion. My other memories were seeing him in hospice, laying in a bed on painkillers while he slowly passed. It was a pretty difficult thing, but I got to show my partner my grandpa's house. Sturdy blue old house with mossy brown carpets, pictures of white tigers, really nice wood paneling. It's a comforting environment, much less intimidating than a sterile hospital at night. We stayed for a bit while he was out. He didn't wake up when I was there, but it was comforting to see him one last time. A year later, we actually got together. My parents, my brother, my grandpa, and my Aunt Jamie, and we saw his grave. It was on January 17th, a few days before Scotty's birthday. The grave had a car, a man fishing on it, and it was near a major highway. Really close to where my grandma used to live when I was still in elementary school. My grandpa's house was really tidy this time. A very noticeable hand sanitizer smell due to his contact with COVID-19. And he recently got a new large cassette player for his sunroom. And we watched a biker show until my aunt got there. And I talked about Shadow Man the Second Coming quite a bit, since we both really enjoy the Shadow Man games. The same game my uncle would watch me play on occasion. We had to go back to Indiana this year, and we stayed for a shorter period of time. We did the usual, played video games, listened to Jandek, and I was really into black metal around this time. With quarantines, we were mostly indoors, and I just like the essence of the world building of black metal and my Midwestern roots with the forests. We were inside during a sunny day, and my mom called to say that my grandma on my dad's side had about an hour to live. We were alone that day, probably watching Trailer Park Boys or BoJack Horseman, and we knew that my grandma was extremely sick. She carried around oxygen tanks and was a heavy smoker. But I just didn't want to talk about it. I chatted with my mom, asking my dad. He was upset, and I couldn't really get close to him about it. He enjoys his emotional space, and we usually keep space away from that side of the family. He helps them though. When we were in the car with my girlfriend's grandparents, she eventually told them that my grandma was dying, and we talked about it, how it would be in the next hour. But I think I got the news when we got home. We went to Kroger and a McDonald's first. I got a peach spritzer, and I was drinking a small can every day around this time. And I was really developing a taste for alcohol around these times because I just wanted to distract the pain of life that I just can't control. I enjoyed the dizziness. I remember that day we went to the Kroger. It was pretty nice, pretty open. It was really anxious because of COVID and everything. And we went just across the street to a McDonald's. We were watching BoJack Horseman at night, playing Sims GBA during the day, and eventually got back home. Start a new routine, make music, wait a month to release it, and die. It feels pointless sometimes, little money, but the art really helps.